Like, this video starts with just understanding that the Patriots are never going to be what they were or how they were during this 20-25 year run of dominance during the Brady Belichick Kraft era. Kraft, you know, love him as an owner, questionable stuff on the side. He's never going to be who he is just because of age. Like, he's going to have to pass the team down to Jonathan or a new owner at some point. Bill obviously has just left this offseason, also declining in age. Like, you're never going to get success out of him, and I fully support the Patriots' decision to move on from him, albeit maybe the context could have been a little bit better. And of course, Brady left several years ago at this point and has since won a championship with Tampa Bay and retired. So, we're never going to see that level of dominance, that level of consistency, and culture, I think, is the huge piece of what Brady brought to the New England Patriots. So that's never going to happen again. But like, in this video, I want to talk about why that's not coming back, what the Patriots can do to fix it, and my potential mock draft, and just some ideas I have on how to fix the team. Let's go. So let's put this in perspective. When Belichick took over, so starting in the year 2000 to year 2023, so 23 years. Let's be very clear. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 playoff appearances over 23 years, which is pretty darn good. Realistically, right? Is any team going to do that ever again? I doubt it. Like, Tomlin himself right here is 10 of 17 with 1 ring. Pete Carroll with an impressive 10 of 13 with only 1 Super Bowl. So, as good, if not better, of a playoff percentage record, but, not nearly as many Super Bowls. And right now with the Chiefs, Andy Reid is 10 of 11 with 2 Super Bowls, potential for a 3rd Super Bowl this year. We'll see how it goes. They're underdogs to the Bills this weekend, so let's see if they actually, pull this one out. So, all that to say, Bill Belichick, Brady, unprecedented, never going to happen again. What made it so great? Well, to understand what made the Patriots so great in all of those years, it probably makes sense to take a look at the roster right now and where it is lacking. Number one, obviously most notable, is the quarterback room. There was an elite quarterback named Tom Brady for 20 years in New England, who was the model of being a top quarterback, who was in a team-friendly deal, and made the players around him better. If you look at any documentary, any highlight, any footage across all of Brady's career, save a couple rough moments, it's Brady being the guy, the leader, the glue to this entire piece, this entire picture, this entire franchise, that simply Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones, and I don't even know who Nathan Rourke is. Like, we've had Malik Cunningham this year and Matt Corral this year as the other guys. Like, none of them are even close to capable of providing. At least we have not seen that to this point. So that's obviously number one. And I'd say number two is the fact that the roster construction right now is just simply not there on a talent perspective to compete with any of the teams from the Patriots' previous dominant years, nor do they have the talent to compete in the modern NFL, which is a drastically different game than the NFL that Brady and Belichick dominated in. If you think about their last championship was 2018, 2018-2019 season, they had some of the pieces that made a good offense. You still had Gronk. They had drafted a young running back, Sony Michel, before his knee blew out. They had a dominant defense, and then Julian Edelman, who was still like a human highlight reel, a horse. They don't have any of those pieces anymore, and they didn't do enough to replace any of them. And even if you look back at, let's just talk about the draft, they might have hit one pick, 2, 3, if you guys call these guys starters, that's fine by me, in this year, but I don't see a single, outside of Marcus Jones, a single starting caliber player in this draft. I see 1, 2 starting caliber players from this draft. And we're not talking about stars, we're talking about starters. It's just, not really saying much. You've got 3 there. You got probably the best pick in recent Patriots memories, Michael Onwenu, which, an interior offensive lineman isn't all that valuable anyway. An absolute whiff in this draft class. Damian Harris was fine for a few years. I just don't value running back that highly. Even with the Ramondre Stevenson pick, I don't think that proves anything. This draft was horrible. This draft was worse. This draft was really bad, even though Joe Tooney turned out to be good. Jacoby Brissett has been a serviceable player for a couple years. Malcolm Mitchell, what could have been. Landon Roberts, like you count some of these guys, you think about their success on other teams. Joe Tooney helped lead the Kansas City Chiefs to the Super Bowl recently. Jacoby Brissett is notable journeyman. And like you just take a look, Malcolm Brown, I think he played most of his career with the Saints. Trey Flowers was good for like 35 seconds. Shaq Mason, I think, and like it just proving that these picks that were actually halfway decent or good are the exception rather than the norm, right? And Tom Brady covered up so many of these problems for so many years. You know, you look at the miss rate versus the hit rate here. It's just horrendous, and especially since Brady left. Look at like so. This is Brady's last full. These are Brady's last full years here. You know, you always think about what could have happened if that N'Keal Harry touchdown against the Chiefs counted for his career. But like you know, every single one of these guys, it's just absolute basura trash right now, and it's sad, dude. I think the real beauty of having a franchise quarterback like Tom Brady is it's going to hide a lot of problems with your organization. I think Bill Belichick's always gotten criticism on his draft picks, and while he's hit on a couple, the miss rates are just outstanding in terms of how bad they are. Recently, for basically all of his picks, you know, I think the scouting department entirety got complacent while Brady was here. You know, he could hide so much of what was going wrong with the team, both on offense and on defense, with just his ability to get it done. You know, there were games where the media didn't know who the Patriots receivers were, because all that mattered was give Tom Brady 3 guys who worked at McDonald's last week, and he's going to be more than fine to win an NFL football game. Setting free agents and trades aside for a second, because I don't think a lot of those have gone well either. Like, if you just take a look at this draft, it's about the complacency. It's about drafting for a team you don't have anymore. And it's just failing to keep up with every other NFL team who's trying to get dynamic superstar players. We've just missed on so many and failed to retain the ones that actually matter. So all this to say, right, the Patriots roster, not built up, and I'm not sure Gerard Mayo's the guy or even in the best situation to fix what's going on here. He may just be an interim head coach while we search for, you know, an actual franchise identity beyond Bill Belichick and beyond Robert Kraft, right? Like Gerard Mayo was a 2008 pick of the Patriots, played here his whole career under Bill Belichick, and then came on as a coach under Bill Belichick of the linebackers and then up to defensive coordinator. And he's never been responsible for an offense. He's never been responsible for a whole team. And he's going to be put in a position where Bill Belichick was acting as both coach and GM of this roster and like wasn't doing a good job. So he's really up against it as it comes to rebuilding this team and making it a shell of what it used to be. So before we even look at salaries or a mock draft or free agency, I think it's time to look at like what is this team and like what's the direction and who are the guys you can actually build around. I think it's a very, very slim number of players that need to stick around and a slightly smaller pool of players that will stick around for next year. If you don't see major overhaul on this roster, it might be time to just storm the castle with Robert Kraft and say, fix everything. So let's take a look at this roster, starting with the quarterbacks. I don't think any of them should be considered franchise pieces at this point. Zappy, I think, is fine if you want to keep him on as a backup in the next couple of years. He's going to be cheap, and he has no negotiating power, so if you want to keep him, that's great. Mac Jones can probably go for a 6th-round pick to the highest bidder who wants another QB. Running backs, I personally believe are a dime a dozen. You think about Ramondre Stevenson here, Zeke, Kevin Harris, JaMychal Hasty, I guess it's on the practice squad. None of them are franchise pieces, and I don't believe at this point the Patriots should be paying a running back unless we feel like we are a running back away from being a championship team, which, spoiler, we're not. Look at wide receivers. If you look at Juju, Tyquan, DeMario, Devontae, Rager, Booty, Slater, you have maybe a half of one total receiver if one of Tyquan Thornton or Demario Douglas pops off. Tight ends, Gesicki, nothing to write home about. Hunter Henry's really, really solid. You bring him back, I think you're happy. Not a guy you're going to build around at this point of his career. He's on his way to 30 years old, which, this isn't Madden, but he's getting older. No real need to overpay for a guy who's just simply, he's not Travis Kelce. He's not Gronk. So no need to keep him around for a long time. Take a look at the offensive line. From what we've seen, I can't really comment on these backup guys because I just haven't watched their tape. Mike Onwenu, clear guy you can build around if you want to. But I feel like one offensive lineman isn't going to make or break a team. You can bring Trent Brown back. He's getting older. David Andrews getting close to retiring. Antonio Mafi, City Sal, Cole Strange. Those guys seem to be playable. For me, offensive line is way more about scheme than it is about individual talent. So if you're going to invest in offensive linemen, you'd better be sure that they have that talent. I am unfortunately not an offensive lineman talent evaluator. Otherwise, I'd have a little bit more input here. What I will say is that this group isn't going to get it done, and we saw that on film this past season where, it might be wide receiver play not being able to get open. It might be quarterback play not making the right reads. It did often seem that Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, whoever was back there, did not have enough time to make decisions, and that seems like an offensive line issue. The defense, it's hard to argue they played poorly. I'll call out a couple of guys here, and if you are one of the guys in this video or on this team and you're watching this video, I'm sorry. Feel free to at me. My bad for not believing in you or not being familiar with your game. Miles Bryant, I've seen get burned so many times. I think he's a very unreliable player. So he is someone I would definitely look to upgrade. When Christian Gonzalez comes back, I hope he's available to start next year and he can ride right in. Duggar, Peppers, solid players. You don't really need to upgrade them, but at the same time, are they going to be a franchise? Probably not. Jonathan Jones, fine. Would look to upgrade all of these spots. Brendan Schooler was an all-pro, I believe, as a special teamer. Maybe he's the next Matthew Slater. Still not someone I'm looking to build my franchise around. Every single guy in here can go. Giovanni Tavai actually played awesome this year, but at the same time, he's not a Fred Warner. Every single guy here could go. I'd like to see what Marte Mapu can do as he develops. I really like Keon White as a prospect. I think he's someone who can play through the rebuild. If he becomes a star, that's great. If not, I wouldn't put it past the Patriots to move on from him. Barmore seems to be a good player. Probably want to keep him around. And then Wise, Godshaw, they're just not guys that can be reliable in the long term as franchise building blocks. So might as well move on from them. And of course, I'll give a little spoiler here. I am a Madden guy. That is my primary method of rebuilding teams and engaging with contracts and free agency and drafts and all that stuff. So I will be a little bit black and white when I'm doing analysis and when I'm talking about things because it is a little bit more black and white in a video game. However, if you can find tape that tells me, hey, let's keep Lawrence Guy around as an aging guy on a rebuild team, that's just maybe he's just a locker room guy. Sorry, that's not information I have. So let's take a look at the contracts. I know we talked about individual players, but overall, so it's a $243 million salary cap with $8 million dead cap, which is not terrible considering some of the cap moves that teams have had to make or will have to make around their quarterbacks, a la Russell Wilson. So as of right now, we have $70 million in available cap, which is a fair amount. And I do believe you'll be able to clear out some cap room by moving on from some key pieces. I think David Andrews is hopefully a guy that retires. He has, I believe, 1 year left on his deal. Him leaving would free up another $5.5-6 million in cap room, which would be great. I think Juju Smith-Schuster should be probably cut. That would kill us on $2 million of cap, which would not be ideal. Devon Godshaw would be someone I'd look to move on from, just free up another $8 million in cap right there. Jonathan Jones probably stays, but you get the picture, right? So many of these guys that you would consider should be top end talent just shouldn't be paid the way they are right now. And we're just having part of the Patriots issue is we're paying guys who aren't performing. Juju Smith-Schuster was just not part of our relevant teams, and he had 1 or 2 good games, but that's not what I'm interested in paying for at this point in a rebuild. I'd rather go sign an absolute stud for a little bit more money. hopefully a quarterback, and try to get people to come play with us. So it's just crazy to me. Like some of these contracts like don't really matter, but if you were able to clear up, somewhere between an extra 20 and 28 million dollars in cap, bring you closer to that $100 million number, I think we'd be in a really good spot to go after some upcoming free agents this year. So as of right now, according to spottrack.com, these are the upcoming free agents for this year. If you take a look, these are what they're probably going to cost, and you can do some like market value evaluations. As of right now, I think the Patriots' overall strategy should be as follows. Number one is continue to dominate on defense and recognize that the offense is a project that needs to be worked on. If you want to go out and get a big defensive name, I would not be upset with that at all. I think a guy like Budda Baker coming off injury could be phenomenal in the Patriots system. I think you talk about like Duggar and Peppers, they're more in the box safeties. Budda can play wherever, and he's an absolute stud. I'd love to see him as a Patriot. I know he's got the injury thing, and I think he might have a contract option. I believe this is what this CO means. He's someone I would love to get. If not, I think Chris Jones is an absolute monster. Pair him with Barmore. That's stuffing the run all day. Leonard Williams is beast. Danielle Hunter, love to get one of those pass rusher if possible. Always needed on the NFL level. Marcus Davenport, someone maybe, but I just don't really want to pay a big contract to someone I don't feel great about. So I think the defensive side of the ball, you get one or two of those guys, I feel like you're in better shape. And the offense is the bigger project. And like as of right now, you have $100 million in cap space for this year, and you're going to try to keep some cap flexibility down the road for the next 2-3 years, pending what we do in the draft, right? So if you draft a rookie quarterback, you recognize that your Super Bowl window opens up right away, right? Because the rookie first round or the cheap quarterback allows so much more cap flexibility, and you can really ball out and bring in some cool players when you have a cheap quarterback. And I think that's part of what made Brady so great as well, is that he was able to take a league average deal and use that money to fill out the rest of the roster. The salary cap is unforgiving, and Bill Belichick played that game for a long time where he was able to bring in slightly better players because Brady wasn't taking as much money. So if you go with the rookie quarterback, you probably ball out a little bit on other players. And if you bring in a veteran quarterback, say like Kirk Cousins is healthy, and you bring him in for hopefully less than $35 million, you bring him in for say it's like 26 over 2, so 52 overall, 52 million, 2 years. Like he could be your quarterback and you can move on from him after 2 years after drafting a rookie. I think that's not an absolute disaster. You have an adult in the room, you can sling the ball, and hopefully someone wants to come play with him. I think there's a lot of upcoming free agents that I'm really, really excited about. If you take a look, I think specifically the wide receiver position is the most fascinating position group, given that there's just names out here. You think about Mike Evans, absolute stud. He might re-sign with Tampa. We'll see. I'd bring him in on a 2-3 year deal for the Patriots. I'd love to see Kendrick Bourne back, even though he's not. I wouldn't consider him a 1 or a 2, but he's phenomenal as a wide receiver 3 on any given team. I think the same thing can be said for Tyler Boyd. Some guys further down here, Marquise Brown, really high draft capital. If you were to bring him in as your 2 or 3, I know Arizona is going to be looking to move on from him if they don't re-sign him, or if they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll see if he passes us. Calvin Ridley, proven player. T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. All these guys seem like really, really good options. And I don't really see anyone else down here that really, gets me going. I know Brandon Ayuk is eligible for trade or free agency. He's another guy I would definitely want to see on the Patriots. But I think they should bring in at least 1, if not 2 of those guys I just mentioned. Really give whoever's playing quarterback a legit weapon on the outside that we just haven't had in New England since Gronk, since Edelman, since Randy Moss. So what we've done for the Patriots as of right now is trimmed a lot of fat. I think a lot of these players are going to wind up being gone, and we're going to have somewhere between 80 and 100 million of cap space to play with in free agency, using the majority of that on either a quarterback or 3 to 4 really solid position players at wide receiver, pass rusher, or safety to bolster both the offense and the defense to keep us in contention for, just call it the division. We're not going to call it the conference or the Super Bowl. I don't think that's realistic just yet. Now, here's where things get interesting. I don't think the Patriots immediately become a Super Bowl contender via free agency this year. And that's free agency that happens before the NFL draft. That being said, the Patriots could, in fact, become division conference Super Bowl contenders by the way they attack the draft, assuming Gerard Mayo hits it out of the park with establishing a culture and he makes really, really sound decisions in personnel, scheme, specifically on offense, right? If everything goes well, you could see a scenario where some of these AFC teams have been really, really weak. Think about Kansas City being hamstrung by Mahomes' contract. Burrow and Allen are both about to hit their big contract windows. I think teams like Houston and Tennessee probably overperformed expectations this year. It might come down to earth. That AFC South division is going to be ferocious in the next couple of years, even though it's not great right now. And then you think about the AFC North too. Like the Ravens aren't going to be able to keep everyone together with Lamar's contract. The Browns are an absolute nightmare from a cap perspective with Deshaun Watson's contract. Like there is a window, right, where the Patriots build a sweet roster around a young rookie quarterback or an established veteran on a team-friendly deal, where they build a roster that's actually better than a lot of these AFC teams and can compete in 2026 or 2027. If it's this year, it probably means they drafted a rookie quarterback here and they absolutely nailed it out of the park. But let's see what happens. I want to do a mock draft just to understand exactly what happens for the Patriots here. I think so. There's a couple trades. I'm not going to do a trade. I'm going to take a player here. As expected, Chicago takes Caleb Williams at 1. Drake May goes 2 to the Washington Commanders. I'd be really upset if this happens. I think Drake May is probably the better prospect than Caleb Williams. I just think his arm power and mobility are super, super underrated. I think when you're looking at them, they're like essentially the same in terms of a talent perspective. Drake May just bigger, seems stronger. And I'm just more excited about him as a prospect than Caleb Williams. I might be crazy. I also think Caleb Williams has it's not, I wouldn't call it off the field issues, but it's like drive, determination, grit issues, if you call it those. Just a coddled little California boy. Again, I say this as a 26-year-old who never played football at a serious level. So taking that with a grain of salt. However, Patriots miss out on one of the top 2 quarterbacks. You could look to draft a quarterback here. I think Jaden Daniels is the only guy that's poking out to me as a top 10 player right now. I think if the Patriots were to get him, I would be super excited. It'd be a lot of fun. I don't necessarily know if he's the guy, just given where the board's going to fall. I think you could take him at 3 and be very happy. If someone wants to take him at 3, we could potentially looking at a trade down. It's all just going to depend on how this free agency turns out, right? If we are a team that goes in, fills out a roster around taking a quarterback in the draft, you can bet you'll know before the draft if we're taking a quarterback or not. In this scenario, I'm going to assume we bring in someone like a Kirk Cousins, like Baker Mayfield potentially, Jacoby Brissett. I don't know. Talk about bringing in just a veteran who's willing to come in and be that bridge quarterback while they figure out the QB of the future. A guy I might look at in the second round is like JJ McCarthy, who I know it's gonna make some people throw up in their mouths, but he's an adult who was able to win a national championship on a run first team, which I don't fault him for. But he showed poise, composure, and maturity to actually get that done. A lot better than what we saw from Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi this year. And if you can get an actual, like we talked about, right? It's not necessarily about the quarterback if they're on a rookie deal. It's what you can surround them with. And if you draft a quarterback in the second round and they turned out really good, you can do a lot with that roster. I'm thinking about the 49ers with Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. They're not going to have to pay him a lot of money, so they can continue to surround him with studs like Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, all those guys. It's possible because, they don't pay that much money to their quarterback. Um, the guy I really want to take here, and I would just be so happy. Well, it's actually Brock Bowers. Like I, as a New England Patriots fan at heart, I think this would be the perfect fit. It doesn't make sense at three. However, like you think about what we had in Gronk, what we almost had with the Gronk Aaron Hernandez matchup there, like Brock Bowers, he's so dominant as a pass catcher and a run blocker. Like if you were to able to get him at any point, I think he's a top six, top seven pick. Like he would be just so disgusting. But what better way to spite the Indianapolis Colts, a former rival of ours, than taking the son of one of their studs and Marvin Harrison Jr. I do want to pause the draft just to go over a couple of these top other options. I like scenario plan, right? We get Kirk Cousins and we get one of Mike Evans or Ayuk or I don't know, T. Higgins or Michael Pittman, right? Like imagine that scenario, right? You go from Mac Jones to I'm calling it Kirk Cousins because he's the one who's most likely to be available. But Mac Jones to Kirk Cousins is night and day. I'd say you go from a bottom 12 quarterback, and that's not counting just starters, to probably a top 16 guy. It's the top half of the league. Then you go from Devontae Parker to, either one of Pittman, Ayuk, Evans, clear upgrade going from bottom 32 in the league to top 16 again. And then going from some combination of Demario Douglas, Jalen Reagor, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, like up to Marvin Harrison Jr., who might be, the next Marvin Harrison. That would just be such a dynamic change on offense. And assuming you get someone like a Danielle Hunter or Buda Baker in free agency, like the team could be set up really, really well for the next couple of years to compete. A couple other guys I want to call out on the draft side. Joe Alt, great left tackle. He might not be the best left tackle in the draft. He's going a lot higher than like an Olu Fashanu or some other guys at offensive line, which is interesting to me. He'd be in play. I wouldn't be necessarily upset if the Patriots got him. I'd be upset if we took him at 3. Malik Neighbors, stud wide receiver. I think he could be just as good as Marvin Harrison. And then you see Jaden Daniels go 6 to the Giants. I don't know how realistic that is given Daniel Jones' contract, but here we are. Cooper DeJean, the first white cornerback in a long time, goes to the Titans. I think that's a fine fit. Rome Odunze, another, like just a lot of really, really solid players go here. Dallas Turner, I think, falls way too far. I think he should be like a top 7 guy. Absolute monster from Alabama. Let's resume this draft. We don't pick until the start of the second round. And we'll just go over just a couple other guys I think the Patriots should have their eyes on. Jared Verse out of Florida State is a phenomenal player. There's no way Olu Fashanu falls to 16. If he does, the Patriots should be trading up immediately to get him. I think Michael Penix, as a former lefty quarterback, I love him. I love who he is, and I love what he's doing for football. With his injury history and age, there is no shot he's worth a first-round pick. And like, if the Raiders were to take him, it would be so classic Las Vegas to screw up another first-round pick. They could do it, and maybe I'm wrong. I would just be very, very surprised. I don't see us going with a corner, so I see a couple guys like Nate Wiggins up there. Leatu Latu is a phenomenal prospect. Obviously, the injury concerns are going to drop him down boards. Brian Thomas is an absolute stud. I'm not sure the Cowboys need a receiver, but that's very interesting there. Those are just the guys I have my eyes on, right? So here we are in the second round, and you have 2 of, I would say, the rosterable quarterbacks remaining. Jordan Travis, I mean, I'd be in. Maybe Sam Hartman, too. I know he had some struggles at the end of the year for Notre Dame. You could take those guys maybe later on and, have them develop behind a Kirk Cousins. I think that's totally valid. I don't think we look quarterback here. You probably look to the offensive line, or hear me out. This receiver class is absolutely stacked. Okay. What if you were to do something like this? Let's take a look at this list. If you could pick one guy from here to be your bridge quarterback, so they're probably taking a veteran plus deal to be a starting or better quarterback for the next 2 seasons. Who are you most happy with? Is it Kirk Cousins? Tannehill, maybe? Brissett? Tyrod is always fun when he plays. I think Jameis could still hoop. Baker obviously hooped out this year. Minshew would be kind of a dream for the Patriots. They just need someone with grit back there, and Mac Jones ain't it. Joe Flacco hooped at the end of the year, but he's already 39. Carson Wentz, you could probably deal with. You'd be really unhappy. I think that's kind of the list right now. Take your best scenario there, right? And imagine a scenario where you get one of these guys. You get one of Evans, Pittman, Ayuk, or Higgins. You scoop Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round. And then you double down with one of these three receivers, either Keon Coleman, Adonai Mitchell, or Xavier Legette, whatever you say it. Like, Keon Coleman is an absolute monster. Think about Mike Williams, but, is kind of healthy. He would be an absolute stud. So, like, this is not, I'm not saying this is a good draft, but it's a lot of fun. If you take, that offense would, and you think about Gerard Mayo, like, it might not be around scheme, right? He might not know how to scheme an offense. It might need to rely on Bill O'Brien or another guy to be their offensive coordinator. But, like, imagine this scenario, right? You get Kirk Cousins, who is a serviceable starter who you can build around for 2 years and then ship off or dump as you get a new guy who's going to be the face of the franchise for the next couple of years, right? You get an adult at quarterback. You have 2, maybe 3 good running backs in Ramondre Stevenson, Zeke, and rookie or free agent to be named later. You've got 3, maybe 4 elite wide receiver options in one of Evans, Ayuk, Higgins, Pittman, Marvin Harrison Jr., elite wide receiver, Keon Coleman, potential elite wide receiver. Like, think about that. Like, Marvin Harrison's going to be your short to intermediate guy. Think of him like Keenan Allen plus in today's NFL, just probably the best route runner we've seen in the draft. You're going to have Keon Coleman, who not only can go up and get it, but has great after the catch skills and could be an absolute monster for whoever we bring in. And then you think about the veteran. You want Mike Evans to be the deep ball guy and the go get it guy. He would pair really well with Keon Coleman. It would be a great addition to the team. You could get Michael Pittman, who's a little bit more shifty, also bigger guy. T. Higgins, bigger guy. And then Brandon Ayuk is definitely closer to the Marvin Harrison build. Like, there's a scenario, right, where we go from rolling out 3 1994 Toyota Camrys with, like, they might be, Toyota Camry is way too reliable an analogy. Like, we're rolling 3 wheelbarrows with broken wheels and rusty handles and, like, a hole in the middle where, like, you bring in something and it drops everything. You're upgrading to basically 3 Cadillacs. So which would you rather have? Like, it's going to make whoever's job it is to coordinate the offense, whether it's Gerard Mayo as head coach or Bill O'Brien or another guy as offensive coordinator, going to make their job so much easier just to have talent and guys you can rely on the outside. It's going to make a rebuild a lot easier. Now, taking a look at the rest of the draft, right? We've taken 2 wide receivers. We probably don't want to take a third. I'm really partial to wide receivers just because they're the most fun to draft. Understanding that you're not always going to get the best positional equity. However, I'm just looking at a couple guys I like. Adonai Mitchell, stud out of Texas. Love Byron Murphy, too, out of Texas. You see back-to-backs there. Bo Nix goes at 42 to the Vikings. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Keep him in the Pacific Northwest. Kalen King looks like a really good player. Chop Robinson falling way too far in this draft. I would think, like, a better scenario for the Patriots, to be honest, would be to take Chop Robinson at 34, get a solid pass rusher, and either do like a trade up or take the best remaining receiver in the 3rd round. I think that would be an absolute phenomenal scenario for New England. However, we took 2 wide receivers, and assuming that we're not going to take another one, I think we look at quarterback with this pick. I think we look at running back with this pick, and we look at pass rusher, so a defensive interior or an edge rusher. And I'm looking at the best available players, and the guy we talked about earlier is available in J.J. McCarthy. I think a 3rd round pick is more than fair for J.J. McCarthy, given what he did in the national championship, which wasn't all that much, but led a winning team and knows how to do that. I think he could be a great backup behind whichever veteran you bring in. Trey Benson is the guy I really, or Blake Corum. Or you bring in both JJ McCarthy and Blake Corum. I think the move for New England is to adopt the strategy that so many teams have found successful in drafting a third or later round running back and kind of riding them into the ground. The running back position is super, super important on the NFL field. You need guys who can really break free and be difference makers. However, it doesn't mean you need to spend a first or second round draft pick on them. I think the third is the earliest I would take a running back and, make your pick. I think Blake Corum is easily one of the best running backs in college football. I'd be super happy to pick him up here. And actually, let's do that. We spent our 3 picks. This is only a 3-round mock on the offense, on skill position players. I don't think that's a huge mistake for the Patriots, given how bad we have been at drafting them, too. If you take a look at the draft picks, let's go back to this. Let's just take a look at the miss rate on some of these picks, specifically for skill position players. We've been so bad at it for so long. This would be an instant correction for the Gerard Mayo and whoever the GM is for their new team to get it right, bringing in skill position guys. Every single one of these guys, and you scroll and read, it's just depressing how bad we've been at drafting skill position players. Booty and Demario Douglas, jury's still out. Douglas seems to be decent. Thornton, absolute miss. I consider all of the running backs just a wash. You could put in anyone there and we'd be more than fine. Zappy, Mac Jones, both misses. Trey Nixon, 7th round pick, miss, whatever. Asiasi and Keene, supposed to be the next Gronk and whatever. Aaron Hernandez, not even close. Neither of them are playing right now. N'Keal Harry, massive miss. Stidham, whatever. Sony Michel won us a Super Bowl, massive miss. Malcolm Mitchell is now reading books to children in the best way possible. I'm so emotionally invested in Malcolm Mitchell's life. If you don't follow him on any social media, please do. Awesome dude. But he's not on the NFL field. Come on. He looked really good. Just, isn't on the team. James White was probably the best running back pick we've had in a long time, stayed for a long time. And then, you have to go back to Rob Gronkowski in 2010 to find a serviceable skill position player that we feel good about. And, of course, Hall of Famer. But we haven't done it in 13 years. This draft, let's find that tab. Nope, not this one. Not this one. Stop selling me things. This draft right here, just 3 picks, would reverse 13 years of absolute misses at the skill position, board. You'd get Marvin Harrison, who is a certified safe stud wide receiver. You'd bring in another project, but project plus, you think about, who T. Higgins is now. I think Keon Coleman is better than T. Higgins was in college. Don't quote me on that, but he has that upside. And then Blake Corum, just talking about 3rd round running back, was clear stud in college, could easily, pick up the slack where Ramondre and Zeke fall off. If the wheels fall off on one of them this year, he can step right in and play. And if not, you have a running back that you don't have to pay all that much for the next couple of years. So let's end the video with this. A look at the current depth chart and a potential future depth chart for the New England Patriots. You've got no future at quarterback. You've got a running back room that's currently aging. Ramondre Stevenson, more than fine, just not pictured here. You've got a wide receiver core with maybe half a piece of talent in Demario Douglas or Tyquan Thornton. You've got tight ends, while fine, kind of a wash. No Hunter Henry. He's hurt and an impending free agent. You've got an offensive line that is, aging, some talent, but, not the biggest problem this team has. And a defense that, while talented, has some holes and some guys we definitely need to replace or move on from. How about this? Let's go into free agency with our nearly $100 million in cap and build a team that looks like this. Still some holes and still some areas of improvement, but a better team. You've got Kirk Cousins at quarterback with JJ McCarthy potentially as a 3rd or 4th round pick. I just threw him in there. Call whoever you want as the backup, or if you want Bailey Zappi to still be there, fine by me. Your running backs are Ramondre Stevenson, Blake Corum, Zeke Elliott, and Kevin Harris. I think that is a more than serviceable backfield. I know Derrick Henry's out there. I've spent a lot of our money already, so I don't think we'll be able to afford him. However, all of the money went to this. So we got Mike Evans, Marvin Harrison Jr., Keon Coleman, Kendrick Bourne, and Demario Douglas as our wide receivers. I think that is an awesome group. You've got Hunter Henry and Gesicki back at tight end. You want to bring Pharaoh Brown too? Sure, whatever. The offensive line, I just added Graham Glasnow. He seemed to be a positional average guy, and assuming David Andrews retires, calls it a career after this season, we just bring in a positional average guy who's hopefully a little bit less expensive than David Andrews. And then on the defense, we add Danielle Hunter, we add Budda Baker, and I think this defense goes from pretty good to great. I also added CJ Henderson, another positional average guy. He's young. Maybe he still has a chance to become something. So I put him in, throw in any free agent there, right? Just for some cornerback depth. But Danielle Hunter, Barmore, White is a really solid, if we're going to play a base 3-4, I think that's more than solid. Jennings could slide into play edge in a 4-3. Bentley and Tavai over the middle. Mapu kind of playing that, what position am I? He's more of a safety. However, he plays a lot of linebacker. Could see him playing outside and maybe rushing the passer, 3 or 4 snaps a game. Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, more than serviceable at quarterback. You got J.C. Jackson, C.J. Henderson, Sean Wade. It's fine depth. And then the safeties are Studley. You got Duggar, Baker, and Peppers. I think that team is awesome. This is minimum to be a 9-win team, potentially 10 or more. And if you're looking at the division, you've got the Dolphins are only going to regress from where they were this year. I think the Bills are going to have a lot of trouble building a roster around Josh Allen, especially with the decline of Stephon Diggs. We'll see how they do. I do trust their GM up there. And then the Jets, who are kind of just the Jets. Like, until Aaron Rodgers proves he can overcome their curse, I'm not going to worry about them. They are beastly, though. I think this is a team that could easily compete for the division. Are they going to win a Super Bowl? No, but assuming you figure out the quarterback, maybe someone opts out of a deal, or maybe you make a massive trade for one. We'll see, but any quarterback would be happy to play with this wide receiver core, and I think the defense goes from pretty good to pretty awesome. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for another video.